Thank you for joining me in a brief overview of the new second grade JAR Community Program. The JAR Community Program introduces second grade students to their community and the way people in communities work, earn, spend money, and help one another. This video will explain the differences between the new version and the previous version of the program, how the new sessions correspond to previous sessions, and a brief walkthrough of how to access the on-screen presentations used during the sessions. The program is made up of 5 required sessions that each take approximately 45 minutes to complete. An optional 6th session explores computer programming and coding. Sessions are best delivered sequentially as the concepts build upon one another. The new JAR Community Program shares many similarities to the previous version. As you can see, many of the program goals are the same or comparable, including describing a community, exploring careers, and explaining how taxation supports government services. The learning objectives, vocabulary terms, and activities throughout the sessions are also similar. The most significant difference between the two versions is that the new program is accessed online through the JA Connect learning platform. Each session includes an on-screen presentation to aid in direct instruction. The on-screen presentation is instructional content in interactive slides designed for facilitators to project or share on screen in front of the students. This means that volunteers will need access to a computer or tablet that has internet access and projects to a smartboard or other display in the classroom. Images of the slides are displayed in the guide for volunteers and teachers to help volunteers keep their place. While we do encourage volunteers to use the on-screen presentations during the program as it adds value to the sessions, the materials can be implemented in learning environments with a range of access to technology. For example, a digital interactive version of the JAR Community Map is included in the on-screen presentation. At multiple points during the presentation, volunteers can click on the map to zoom in on areas and click on certain objects. However, a poster of the JAR Community Map is also included in the kit of materials. This is helpful in situations where internet or smartboard access is not functioning properly or not available at all. Also, while this program will likely be delivered by a volunteer in a classroom, the Guide for Volunteers and Teachers outlines a variety of implementation options, including remote learning. Each session begins with a welcome and warm-up activities in which volunteers are encouraged to engage with students and ends with wrap-up activities and reflection questions to reinforce student learning. Student materials include a Together at Home section that outlines an activity for caring adults to engage with their students to extend the learning beyond the classroom. Volunteers are encouraged to be mindful of the allotted time frame and make adjustments as needed to stay on track. The first session, Communities at Work, corresponds to the first session of the previous version, People in a Community Work Together. The big ideas are: people in a community work together to make the community an inclusive place to live, work, play, and learn. Different kinds of jobs need different kinds of skills. Like the previous version, students will look at a map of a pretend community that displays businesses and citizens doing jobs. Students will also receive job cards. The activity is a game of I Spy, in which the volunteer gives students hints about a person on the map, and students guess who they are talking about. The second session, People at Work, corresponds to the second session in the previous version, Sweet O Donuts. The big ideas are: businesses produce goods and services. People work to earn income by producing goods and services. While the activity for this session is similar to the previous version, the focus is less on production and more so on how people get paid for the work that they do. For example, people can be paid yearly, by the hour, or by the number of products or services they produce. In the new program activity for this session, students are producing pizzas instead of donuts. The activity can be executed similarly to the previous version by having students break up into groups and putting ingredient stickers on pop-out pizzas and working together to produce as many products as they can. It can also be done as an online game. Students can use tablets individually or as a group to compete against one another to create as many pizzas as possible. This version does require setting up the game online prior to the session. Instructions for setup can be found in the Educator Overview document. The third session, Money at Work, corresponds to the fifth session in the previous version, Money Moves in a Community. The big ideas are, money is used to pay for the things people need and want. Money is used by businesses to pay for the things they need in order to produce goods and services. In this session's activity, students are given a goods and services card that corresponds with their job card they received in a previous session. Students take turns buying items from other citizens, which represents how money moves through a community. Session 4, Votes Count, corresponds to the fourth session in the previous version, Let's Vote. The big ideas are, responsible community members participate in improving the community. Voting is a way to make sure everyone has a say in community decisions. Like the previous version, students will have an opportunity to vote. The students will now be voting on a way to improve the pretend JA community rather than their school. They will find problems in the community park and vote on which they would like to fix. They will then brainstorm a solution. Session 5, Making Choices, corresponds to the third session in the previous version, Business and Government Jobs, through the introduction of government and taxes. It also corresponds to the fourth session in the previous version, Let's Vote, through the introduction of decision making. The big ideas are, people pay taxes on the money they earn. Government services support the community. Decisions can be challenging to make. People must be flexible and willing to adapt to cope with the consequences of those decisions. The activity for this session involves the students helping the mayor of the pretend JA community make decisions that will help the community. The decisions are interconnected and outcomes will differ based on choices made. The optional sixth session, Crack the Code, can be implemented by the volunteer as an additional session or by the teacher as an extension of the program. The big ideas are, many jobs in the community require workers to have computer skills and the ability to use digital tools. People use programming code to tell computers, robots, games, and apps what to do. There are 3 activity options for this session. Volunteers and the teachers are encouraged to decide which level is the best fit based on students' abilities. Go Robot is the introductory level for students who have no previous exposure to coding commands or sequences. Code a delivery story is a basic level activity for students who grasp the concept of commands and sequences. Find the Bugs is an elementary level activity for students who have done some basic coding sequences. Now I will walk you through how to access the online presentations via the JA Connect Learning platform. Volunteers and educators both have access to the online content so that the volunteers can look at it to prepare at home and the educators can have the program pulled up and ready to go in the classroom when the volunteer arrives. First, you will go to learn.ja.org. If you've already set up an account, enter your credentials here. If you haven't set up an account before, you'll be able to create a password through the Forgotten Password button. The email will be your primary email that we have on file. When you go through this process, you will receive an email with instructions. Once you get into your account, you will see a screen that looks similar to this. In the bubble on the left slide where the green arrow is pointing, every blended class you are enrolled in will be listed here. The name of the class you are looking for will look like the example at the bottom. If you are teaching more than one JAR community class, be sure to click on the class with the correct school and teacher name. After you click on the class name, you will see the actual program screen that looks like this. It will automatically open to the welcome slide you see here the first time you access it. The tabs on the left side contain the resources and presentations for the program. To access the first session content, click on Session 1, Communities at Work. Each item that says Document to Download beneath it is the PDF version of an item that you will find in your kit. For example, if I click on the Communities at Work Student Learning Log, it will open in another tab. From there, the item can be downloaded and printed if you or the teacher should need it. The main item that you'll need for each session is the on-screen presentation. To open it, click the play button on the screen. When the online presentation opens up, it will look like this. As mentioned previously, images of these slides can be found alongside the content in the guide for volunteers and educators to help you keep your place. As explained earlier, some of the content is interactive and you're able to click on items to reveal other content. As seen here, the vocabulary term job was clicked to reveal the definition. It is important that volunteers and educators access the online presentation and play around with it prior to the program so that they are familiar with it. Thank you for joining me in this overview of the new JAR Community Blended program. As always, please reach out to your JA program manager with any questions.